Okay, so welcome to the tutorial. So of course, first we need all of our stock images here. So you go to File and then you open your images to Photoshop. And you can also see the original version of this image that we are going to recreate there. So yeah, let's open all of our stock images here. So this is our background. Then we are going to add the boat there, the gate, then the floating lanterns, and then the lights. So yeah, let's get into it in the next video.
Okay, so now we have all of our files here in Photoshop CC, and you will get all of these source files. They are included in this tutorial, and you can open them by going to File and then click Open, and then just search for the folder where all of these images are in. So the first thing before we go to the editing itself, I want to point out that always use high quality images when you are doing digital art. It's very important, because if you don't use high quality images, then outcome will not look as near realistic as it looks with high quality images. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do with this our background is that we're going to go to the crop tool. You can also click C for crop, and I always try to crop the images like, in my opinion, it looks better when it's like higher than wider. So more high than wide. And this also works perfectly on Instagram, so that's one reason why I also crop the image like this. Images which are this wide doesn't really look that good on Instagram, in my opinion. But yeah, you can crop it however you like, but in this image the crop will be like this. So then you can click Enter or click this here, but I'm clicking on Enter. Okay, so this is now a crop, and we want to add the elements here. We have all of our elements here on the top, and the first thing we're going to add is the gate. So I'm going to show you how you can cut it out easily. And now we go to the gate image, and we want to cut this out. So some people prefer this quick selection tool, which is like you can select the outlines like this, but in my opinion this isn't very good. Like, it works on some type of images, but I prefer this pen tool. So how this works is that you get these lines, you just click like this and you get all of these lines, and then you can combine it to the first point, and then you can go click with the right mouse button and then go to make a selection, and then the feather radius, I usually use 1 over here, and then I click OK, and then you have like selection over here. And yeah, that's like basically how pen tool works. But if we want to cut out this image, is like we click the outlines. So the one thing, if you have a curve like this in the image, you can click here, and then when you click to the second part, you just grab it, and you get these like things that you can adjust. And if you spread it here, you can see that this line will actually like go to this outlines like this. And when you have made the curve like this, you can click Alt and then bring this little guy over here back to here, and then you can just make your second line like that. And if you want to undo something, just click Ctrl Z. Okay, so now I'm going to speed up this selecting part a bit and just go around the outlines, and then we get back to this after we have selected this. Okay. Okay, so now we have made the outlines. So as you can see, I didn't make like a perfect job on every little detail because we can fix that easily. But yeah, and now we do the selection. It's like we click right mouse and then make selection like this. Okay. And if you are wondering how I'm zooming in, I just click Alt and then I scroll the mouse. As you can hear, my scroll is pretty loud, but yeah, don't let that to distract you. But yeah, you could click Ctrl C and then Ctrl V, so you would get like this out. But you can also do it like Ctrl G. So, oh, we need to take this lock. If you have this lock on here, it will not be that easy to edit. So just click the lock and then you can click Ctrl G. Oops. Ctrl J, I mean. Yeah, Ctrl J. So that gives you the layer like this. So as you can see, we have now these little white parts here. We need to delete them also. But now we're just going to grab this layer and we're going to move it to the background like this. Okay, and then make it a bit smaller. You could also go to the Kate and then here and duplicate layer and then to the background, and that would also do the job, but I think it's easier to just grab it here. Okay, so now we have our gate over here and we're going to delete these parts. So for this you could use the pen tool. Once again, it's the best one, but to show you other ways to crop things out is this magic wand tool. So if you have a completely white or singular color, you can just click here and then you can click delete. So when you click delete, it will delete the white part. So here the same, and here and here and also here, and then we have little parts here and maybe that one also, and these. So as you can see, we have little white lines here. So I'm going to show you how you can like perfect the selection if you didn't do like perfect job with the pen tool. The pen tool is the best one, but it takes the most time, of course, because you have to click everything like separately. But now we're going to click Control and then we're going to click with mouse here. So that selects the outlines like this. So then we go to Select and Modify, and then we click Contract. And what this does, it's like it contracts the selection by the pixels you put here. So for example, this I want to take a bit out of the white lines here, so I put like 3 pixels, and when we click OK, you can see like it contracted it a bit. So now you can press Ctrl J and it will make a new layer of the selection, and when you click this eye here of the original, you can see the white lines are removed. So then we can click this original and then click delete. We don't need it anymore. Okay, so that's how we have our gate here. And the next thing, we need our boat. And the same thing for this. So the pen tool. For this image, it's like you must use pen tool, because it's if with a quick selection and try to take the outlines, it doesn't work. So just the pen tool, and the same thing with this. Just go to the outlines, and I will speed up this so we get back to editing after this is done. Okay, so now we have the outlines already, and then we're going to make a selection, and the feather is 1, and okay, and then you can just click Ctrl J again and you get the layer. And then we're going to move this the same way to the background, like this. Okay, so as you can see, these images need some perspective changes. This doesn't look good at all like this. But I'm going to speed up these little parts, and then we can get into the perspectives. Okay, so now we have taken our elements here, the basic elements, the boat and the gate. So in the next video I will show how you do the perspectives and how to fit the lighting. So it's important to blend the images well together, and that is done with multiple tricks that I will show you. Okay, so see you in the next video. Okay, so welcome to the second video. And in this video I will show you how you can change the coloring, perspective and the lighting of an image. So as you can see, this doesn't blend in at all to the background image, and we can change that pretty easily. This boat image will be pretty tricky to do, but we can handle it well. So I have also opened the Ready Edit here, and this will help me to explain things for you, because sometimes for me it's kinda hard to explain smoothly things, so I'm sure this will help a lot me to explain things for you. Okay, so let's start with the gate. So as you can see, this background image is taken from a higher perspective than the gate, so we are going to fix this to fit to the background image. Always match the perspective with the background image. So we're going to press Ctrl T, and then we're going to choose here perspective. Okay, so then we're going to squeeze this a bit. So as you can see, it will start to fix the perspective like this. When you drag it here, it will make it a lower perspective, and you can also play around with this a lot. But yeah, we are going to now focus on making it look great, of course. So now we're going to click the perspective and then squeeze it a bit. So as you can see, it will start to look like it's taken from the right perspective. And in my opinion, this looks a bit too like squeezed up in vertically. So we're going to take the distort tool here, distort, and then drag this down a bit so it looks a little bit more how it should look. Okay, something like this. And then I want these pillars to be straight down. Now they are kind of squeezed in like this. So we're going to take the warp tool for that. And in this you can change, you can drag anything. You can like make this any shape as you want. But yeah, let's drag here like this and make it straight. And then from this a bit there and a bit there. And then from this part a bit to the left, and here also a bit to the right, like this. And then we're going to click enter. Okay, and now when we compare it to the original one, it is starting to look something like this. Maybe we need to do it a little bit bigger. So press shift and then you can scale it like this. If you don't have shift, then it goes like pretty badly. So always shift when you want to scale things up, like this. And maybe I could take the perspective a bit down more. And then we're going to place it to its place like this, to the middle. And then enter. Okay. And now I'm going to show you how you can blend this on here. So we're going to click here, and this adds a layer mask to the image. Okay, and we have a blank white here. And in layer masks there is one important rule, and it's black removes and white reveals. And as you can see, now we have a white layer mask and everything is shown here. Then if we click the brush here, and we have a black color here, and flow and opacity at 100, and when we paint here, as you can see, it removes. Black removes, white reveals. Okay, remember that. So we have to make this look more like it comes out of the water instead that it will be like on the water. So we're going to zoom in Alt and then scroll closer. And we're going to take flow out a bit. As you can see, if we drag now, it will take everything out like that. But when we take the flow down a bit, maybe to 30, like this, then you can like push easily here, like this, so it's the change won't be that strong. Okay, so we're just going to paint here a bit so it looks like it's coming out of the water instead that it's on top. And you can change the brush size easily by clicking Alt, pressing Alt, and then dragging, click right mouse button and then drag to the right or to the left. And if you want to change the hardness, then up or down. Okay, so you don't have to always go here and change the things here, because that takes some time. So try to be comfortable with doing like this, so you will save a lot of time. Okay, so maybe we take it a little bit in more. Okay, something like this, a lot better in my opinion. And then the same to this one. Oops, you can change easily the colors here by clicking X. X will change this. And if you have different colors here, then you can just click this and it will reset the colors back to black and white. And then you can change it with X. Okay, so remember that also. And now we're going to paint here and remove a bit of the sharp edges. Maybe take the hardness down a bit so that looks good in my opinion. Okay, as you can see now, it looks more like it's coming out of the water instead that it will be on top of the water. And then we're going to click on the layer mask, Control and then the layer mask. And then we're going to choose the quick selection tool here, and we're going to make it a bit smaller, and then we just press here, and now it will select only the layer mask selection. If we will do it like Control and here, then it will select also the parts that we don't want the adjustments on. So here and then here, and now it's only visible here. And now we're going to choose hue and saturation here. So we're going to change the colors with this. And if you don't have this adjustment panel like this, you can also take it from layer and then new adjustment layer and then hue and saturation here. But yeah, it's also visible here. And now as you can see, it made a layer mask here. And remember, black shows and black removes and white reveals. So now if we take the saturation up, it will only affect the gate and not the background image. If this would be fully black, like if we paint it black, like this, now it won't affect anything, and if we would paint it white, now it will affect the whole image. Okay, so that's just to make sure you now understand how the layer mask works. Okay, then we're going to take a couple adjustments back, and now we are here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take the lightness out a lot. Somewhere minus 50 would be great here. Yeah, something like this. And then the saturation down a bit. But I want to maintain some of the color. So what you can do with hue and saturation, you click this hand and then select the color here. Pick the color and this will detect it. And now I want to make the reds show a bit more, so then I can go to saturation like this and make the reds pop out a bit more. And then you can also, if you want to make the gate look a different color, you can change it here easily. I think in the original image I had it more like pink looking than a bright red, dark red I mean. Okay. So that's, in my opinion, very good. So now we have changed the lighting in this, and there is one trick you can do more if you have an image that has a light coming to it. So you can pick the burn tool, and if you have a highlight here, then you can choose here highlights and then put the exposure to 50, and then you can like take the highlights completely out. Like this will help you remove them if you have strong highlights. Now we don't have very strong highlights, but I'm going to paint a bit here and here, so that's good. Okay, so now we have our gate. So the next thing we're going to do is to focus on our boat. Okay, so now we move on to the boat. So reveal it, and as you can see, this looks like it's a bit too wide. So the first thing we're going to do is to squeeze it. So Ctrl T and then distort and squeeze it in a bit like this. Okay, so now it looks a lot better already. Then we're going to scale it down. Remember, Shift and then drag down to scale. Scale it down a bit. So now that's great. And in the original one we have it more like sideways, so we can change that by Ctrl T and then go into the perspective and then bring this up a bit. Okay, so like this, and then we can distort this image up a bit and then maybe make it a little bit smaller. And now I think it looks pretty great. One thing we have to do for this boat is to erase some of this strong like edge here, so make it a bit more round looking. So the hardness to 100 and then take some of the edge out and make it a bit more round shaped. Okay, that's good. And now we're going to fix the lighting on this. So now we are going to use the burn tool, because as you can see, the light is coming from here on this image, and we in this boat image it's coming from here. Okay, so we need to burn the highlights here and make them stronger on this side, of course. So we're going to zoom in, and then we're going to choose the burn tool, and now we're going to take the highlights out. So exposure, do something like 25, I think it's good. You want to keep this always lower than 50 or 50, because if you put it to font 100 it will take the highlights out very like fast, and you want to be able to make slight adjustments always. So 25 is great, and then we're going to just brush here and take the highlights out. And when I cut this out, I just cut out some of the bars, like for example this lunchbox here, and when we take these highlights out, they won't be like, when you won't pay attention to them. Like if you look the image from far, you won't able to even see them that well, so they don't have to be removed. So now we take the highlights out. And don't worry if the image starts to look like a bit like the colors are fading out, because we can fix that with adding contrast to the image. So taking here some of the off. Okay, we have one part here that is white, so we're going to erase this. Okay, and then I also spotted that we have here a slight problem, but we can fix that later. Okay, so now we take the rest of the highlights out. Okay, like this, and maybe here a bit too. Okay, as you can see, it looks a lot better than the original one. And when you click Alt, the burn tool will change to dodge tool. It won't show here, but it's the same. Like when you click Alt, then the adjustment will be reversed. As you can see now, I start to paint and the highlights come in. And if I don't have it, then it will just look like this. Okay. So now we're going to add some of the highlights for the right side. Okay, so click Alt and then press here and bring some of the highlights back. And we want all of the highlights out from the front of the boat, since there isn't any light going here. We actually want to burn some of the shadows, and when you use the shadow thing, then you have to like bring the exposure down a lot. So now we're going to bring some shadows here, and also here, because here is shadows. And then you can like test all of these out and see which one makes the best changes. Sometimes you don't find that immediately. Here is some strong highlights that we don't want, and we actually like, let's remove this part because that looks a bit weird in my opinion. So that's now removed. Okay, now we have light coming here and the highlights are here, and we have also burnt the highlights from here, and now it looks like it belongs more to the image. Of course it doesn't look realistic. This bridge doesn't even look realistic yet because we missed the reflections, but that will be on another video. But yeah, now we're going to burn maybe here a bit, and here, and maybe that a bit. Okay, so now that looks great. Now we want to add the contrast, because this made it a bit blank, and we are going to do the contrast with curves. So Control and select the outlines, and then click curves here, or take it from the layer and then to new adjustment layer and curves, as I showed before. Then click curves, and now we're going to make a contrast curve. So the contrast curve works like you bring some of the blacks to the right, some of the highlights here, I mean some of the blacks to the right and a bit up, like this, and then we're going to bring it down from the middle, and then from the highlights up. Okay, so as looking curve is a contrast curve. So in these curves, the highlights are here right on the top, and blacks are here on the left. So remember that. Then we take the opacity down a bit, I mean fill. Like, I don't really know what the difference is between opacity and fill. They seem to always look the same, so it doesn't really matter which one you use. But yeah, let's take the fill out a bit so the effect won't be that strong. Something like this looks great. Okay, now we can compare. That adds a lot of contrast to the image. Okay, now let's just move everything to the place. So you can select this by clicking shift, and then so you can select 2 layers. Then you can like click here and move this. Oops. Maybe Control T and then move, so that won't do any complications. Okay, so that here, maybe distort it down a bit. And then we can also change. Okay, let's not change anything here. That looks pretty great. Okay. And then select this and Control T and then move this to the place. Maybe we can take the perspective down a bit more so it looks better. And then distort it up a bit. Now it's perfect. Okay. So that's how you blend images in, the lighting, coloring, etc. And in the next video I'm going to show you how to do reflections. So that should be interesting. So let's see you in the next video. In this video I'm going to show you how you can make the reflections to these elements. But first I noticed that the boat doesn't look really that great compared to the original one, like here. So let's make some changes to it. So the first thing we're going to do is select both of these, Control T, and then select the perspective here, as we did in the previous video, and then expand the perspective a bit like this. Then skew, like bring this up like this, and then this down a bit, and now you can select the distort here. Sorry if I'm going a little bit too fast, but this is just some minor like improvements to this, so you can play around with this, and I'm sure you can nail the right perspective. Then we're going to distort the image a bit up, and then make the whole thing a bit smaller, like it is in the original one, like that. And I also realized that the boat looks different on this part. As you can see, it looks a lot more realistic here. So let's just erase some of the parts here, or we can actually warp the image. So let's make the curves layer invisible, because we can't warp if we have 2 layers. You don't have to warp here. So let's make that invisible, and then this, and bring the warp. So we can warp this down a bit, this up a bit, maybe that up a bit, and then the whole back part down like this, and this also a bit down. These are just like my perfectionism really shows here, because I wanna make everything like perfect. Now that looks really great. Then we just rotate it a bit, like that. Okay, now we have our boat, and now we go into the reflections. So let's move this up a bit and make it a little bit smaller here, like that, and then these two here. And now before we do the reflections, I remembered that this curves layer doesn't look great in this now, because this curves is made for the layer before we did these minor changes. So we can fix that by making this whole layer black first. So take brush and flow to 100%, and then just paint black over this area. So as you can see now it's fully black. Then you bring Control and click here on the new, and then just white over this. So now it's again on the right layer. So that's how you can use the layer masks if you want to make some changes later. Okay, so now we are going to work on the reflections, and all of my reflections are done with displacement maps. So that's the key for a perfect reflections. So how the displacement map is done is, the way is pretty complicated, but I'm sure you can follow along. The first thing we need to do is to figure out the image size, and you can check it by going to image and then to image size. And here you can see the size, and we need to halve this image size and put the resolution to 150 to a new document. So remember these and halve them to a new document. So we're going to cancel this and then go into new, and quickly, if I calculate, that's 2140, and that's roughly 2500. It doesn't have to be exact, but yeah. Then that's to 150, and then just click OK. Now we have a new document. So what we are going to do with this, first we're going to click this lock so we can edit it, and then we go to filter, then go to noise, and then add noise. And we're going to keep the amount to maximum, and then check that you have Gaussian and monochromatic clicked on. Then you just click OK. The next step is we go to filter, then to blur, and then to Gaussian blur, and blur this by 2 pixels. Then click OK. And the next thing we're going to do is go to this channels panel here. If you don't have this visible, then go to window and select the channels here. Okay, now I just click them off, and now I click them on. Okay, so now you should have them. And now you go to the red channel, and we go to filter, then to stylize and emboss. And we're going to put this edge to 90 degrees and the height to 1 and amount to maximum 500%. Then you click OK. And then we click the green channel over here, and we go to filter, then we go to stylize, then we go to emboss and put the edge to 180 degrees and the same amount like this, and then click OK. And now you click this RGB to select all of the channels, and then you click the layers here again. Okay. So now we have this weird looking thing, and you don't really have to understand why we did this, but I'm going to show you how I do this displacement map. It doesn't matter if you understand what these steps meant, because I don't even understand myself fully, but this will make an awesome displacement map for reflections, believe me. Then we're going to take Ctrl T, press Ctrl and T, and then to perspective once again. And now we're going to spread this, make zoom a lot out, and take the right or the left bottom part, and then just spread it a lot. Like in my image, I now expanded it like this amount, 3276%. Okay, so now we click here, and now this will, if you have a slow computer, that could take some time, but now it just did it fast. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check this tutorial here, and we try to check the horizon here where the water starts, and try to make the same thing there. So let's check. That's almost at half point, so we go here, and then we Control T, and we take the distort, and we distort it almost to the same place where it is here. Okay, so Control T, distort, and then it wasn't fully, now it's half, so a little bit up, like this. Now it's great. Then we click enter, and this will take some time again. And okay, now we have a file here, and if we now go to file and we were about to save it, and if we name this displacement map and we try to save it, it will say that could not save because it's too big. So we have, what we have to do to decrease this is to select this, then Control C, Control V, and delete the original one. And then we're going to take this here, and as you can see now it's only 11 megabits, and it was like hundreds of megabits just seconds ago, because it was spread, the image was spread like over here, so it's a really big file. But now we have it, now we have a small file, and now we can save it normally as a displacement map as PSD file, because you could also like pick there is the large document format, but for some reason the displacement map doesn't work with the large document, so we have to save it as a PSD file. So now we're going to name this displacement map and save it to anywhere you want. It doesn't really matter where it is. So now we're going to save it. Okay, and one thing you have to check is that you have 8-bit color channel. So go to image and then mode, and before you save, check that this is 8 bits, because displacement maps doesn't work with 16 bits channel. So make sure you have an 8-bit channel here selected before you save the displacement map. Okay, now we can close this, and then we're going to use the displacement maps. So let's do first the boat's reflection. So how I duplicate these is I choose, and then I go to duplicate like this, and now I'm going to make them as a smart object, because if we do Control E will combine two layers together, but sometimes when you click Control E, it will change the settings a bit, but smart object doesn't do that. So we're going to make a smart object like that, and then we're just going to take the smart object off. That's how I'm doing it. I'm sure there's a smarter way to that, but that's just how I'm used to do it, and that's the only way I know. So now we have two identical layers. Now you don't have the curves layer on the reflection anymore, so it's easy. The displacement map is easy to do on one layer. Then we go into Control T and flip vertical here. Okay. Then we bring this down to the point where these click here, like this. And then we're going to take the warp and warp this whole thing, so this end goes to here. So let's take it like this, and then try to make it here like this. Okay, so that's good. now we have a layer that is already looking like a reflection, but it really isn't. As you can see, there's a ripple, but there isn't. So now we are going to use our displacement map, and we can get the displacement map for going to filter, then distort, and then to displace. Okay, filter, distort, displace. Then you're going to put here 40 and here 60. So horizontal 40, vertical scale 60, and then check that you have stretch to fit and repeat edge pixels on. Then we click OK, and we search our displacement map file, and then we click open. And now it automatically creates the ripple here. Okay, so maybe this is a bit too strong, so what we can do is fix it. So we click Ctrl Z, or one thing that you can do is to make a smart object of this. So if it's a too big one, then you can just like with smart objects you can change the settings afterwards, but if it's a normal layer, then you can't. So now we go to distort and displace, and let's try a smaller horizontal size, bigger horizontal size and smaller, something like this should be fine. And now we go to OK, and to this displacement map again. Okay, it looks pretty similar, but yeah, you can now change it by clicking here to the displace, and now you can change the settings here on a smart object again. Don't know why I didn't do that at the first time, but yeah, use this smart object thing, that will help you and save some time. Okay, so now as you can see, this is a little bit on the boat, so let's take this below these two, so now it's not on of them anymore. And now we have our reflection here. And what I do with my reflections, I take they fill or opacity down a bit. Here I put it to 60%, like this. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make this a little darker. So we control and then select this like that, and then we take the curves once again. That this curves adjustment is really important in Photoshop in general. I use this like really much, and what we're going to do here is we're going to take these highlights down like this. So in the right there is highlights, and in the left there is blacks. Okay, so highlights down, then blacks a bit up, and then we take the middle point, midtones here, and then we take them down a bit. Okay, so now we have a dark reflection here, and then we can take this fill out a bit so it looks better. Okay, now we have our boat reflection ready, as you can see. Now we just move everything a bit up, like this. And yeah, that's our boat reflection. And now we just do the same thing to the gate. So now I'm going to do it a little bit faster, since now you know how to do it. So choose these, duplicate them, then make a smart object. Then you can Control T, then just flip it, make it here like this. Maybe spread it a bit. You can change the perspective how you want. I'm just going like this. And then what you do, you take the smart object off for a while. Then you go to filter, distort, displace, and then you can test. No. What did I just do? I took the what is that called? Smart object off of it, but yeah, don't take the smart object off. I'm just now being just crazy with this. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Just put the smart object back here. Convert to smart object. Okay. Now, sorry if I distracted you there. I just... yeah. Now, distort displays. Then, try if this works on this one. Yeah. Maybe it's a bit strong here, but it will be fine. It will be just fine. Okay, so now we take the fill down a bit like this, and then the same thing for this. Curves, highlights up a bit, blacks up a bit, and then the midtones down a bit. Okay, so that looks good. Highlights a bit down. Here I did the highlights a lot more down because it was a brighter one, but here just a little bit highlights down, a little bit backs up, and then midtones just a hint down. And now we have our reflection to the gate. Okay, that's how you do reflections. Now you can use the displacement map whenever you want. It will work like 90% of the time, but sometimes you could have some complications with it. I have the experience with the displacement map that they don't work all the time, but most of the time they do. Okay, so that's how you do the displacement maps, and now you just can, like, if you want, you can combine the layers, but if you want to make some changes to them later, I don't recommend doing that. One thing you can do, I always try to keep backups in my projects, so one trick that you can do is to duplicate these like this, then make them to a group. You can do Ctrl J, and that will take them on a group, and just make this group invisible and put it here, and you can name it reflection gate, and then you just combine these to a smart object like this, and then take the smart object off, and now you can easily focus on one layer instead of doing all the changes first to this and then to the curves. So that's just easier for me. Now put a layer mask on it, and then you can just refine the reflection. Put the flow to 20, 25, and then we start to refine it. So brush a bit off here, make it brush pretty large, and then brush a couple times here, and just make the reflection not that visible on everything, since that will make it a bit more realistic. So just brush around this like this. Okay, that's great. And the same thing you can do for this. So duplicate, then take them on a group, then make that invisible, reflection both, and then put that below these, and then you can combine these to a smart object, and now you have the reflection here, and make a layer mask on it, and then just brush some of it from here off. Like this. Okay, now the reflections are done. So that's how you do reflections. Hope you learned it. Now you can watch this video, of course, as many times as you want. So yeah, now we have our image pretty much like done, without the lanterns, of course, and lighting, but the basic elements are now here. Okay, so let's see you in the next video. Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how to do the lanterns and their reflections. Okay, their reflections are done with the same displacement method, but yeah, let's start on the lanterns. So we have our lanterns opened here, and I'm going to speed up this process. So I'm just going to cut with pen tool these out, just like I showed you in the first video. So go around like this, and then just make this same thing for each lantern. Okay, so now we have our first one, and now I will speed up the rest. Okay, so see you in a couple seconds. Okay, so now I have selected a couple of these. So now we're just going to make a selection, and then Control C, Control V, and now we have our lanterns here. Oh yeah, that rhymed. But yeah, now we're going to select these like this and move to the tutorial. Okay, now we have some of these lanterns here. Oops. And yeah, now we just try to get them like here. So we have these big ones, of course, need to go to the front, and then the smaller ones to the back. And you need to like duplicate a lot of these, but don't put them like in, if you have this lantern, don't put one like this here, because that's just like, that doesn't look right. So try to, if you put this lantern here, then you can put this lantern, for example, here, but not to the right. Yeah, I'm sure you understand. But yeah, now I'm going to speed up a bit. I try to like mimic these places that I have here. So I'm sure you can understand. Just select from this layer like this, and then Control C, Control V, and now you have one layer, and now you can move this one layer like this. So always cut out from this. You can name this to lanterns, and then you just, with the pen tool, the lasso tool, you can select it like this, and then Control C, Control V, and now you have another lantern. Okay, so that's how you copy paste them to an own layer. Okay, so now I will speed up a bit. Okay, so now I have almost all of the lanterns here. As you could see, it was pretty big project to copy paste all of these, so that would have been too long for the video, but I'm sure you can handle it but you can also like come up with your own setups for the lanterns. I remember I used like at least 3 hours to nail all of the lanterns here and their reflections, etc. But now we have our lanterns here, and one thing that I want to do is to move the gate a bit up, still a bit up from, okay, we need to move the reflection too. Okay, so let's move that up a bit and then make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, okay, that's perfect. And now for the next part we have to do the reflections, and the reflections are done like the same way as these. So you have to like copy paste every one of these lanterns and then turn the upside down. For example, this layer 11, we have to, like, let's take a bigger one, the closer one. Okay, this layer 6, we have to like duplicate this layer like this, and then Control T, and then flip vertically, and then here, and do some changes with the warp tool to match the boat. I mean the lantern like this. The same for here. And then you have to do the displacement map, and it has to be done separately for every layer. So that's a lot of work, and that can be pretty exhausting, but yeah, that's what you need to do if you want to do the reflections perfectly. And then you just go to filter, distort, displace, and now that this is so small, now you can put this big numbers, so you can like put 10, like 15 and 15 and 15. Let's try that out. Okay, so that's enough. Then just take the opacity down, and now you have your lantern reflection. And now I will speed up this part, and yeah, we'll be back after all of these have been done. Okay. And yeah, one thing more, remember to keep these separately, the reflections and then the lanterns itself. So make an own group for all of these. So select by holding shift and then click this folder icon here and name this lanterns like this. Now they are all here, and then make a group for this. Lanterns are for reflection, and then put that in there. Okay, so now you have the lanterns, and now you just go one by one through every single lantern. Okay. Okay, so now we have all of our lantern reflections ready, and as you could see, maybe I changed the displacement values. They differ from 15 to 5. The further you go, use 5, and the closer you are, use 15. And now we have all of the reflections here, and they are now, you can like switch them off like this, and here the same, you can switch these off like this. So now they are like organized and ready to like use. And now we're going to use the same technique as we used in the previous video. So we're going to select all of these lanterns, and let's make that opacity to 100. But yeah, we choose all of these lantern reflections and we duplicate them, and we put these to our folder, and then we name it lanterns off, and put it under all of these layers, and then switch it off. Then you made a smart object from these, and now you have these in a one layer, and you still, if you want to modify them, you can come here, turn this on, and then make some adjustments. So now you have a backup of the lanterns here. But now we have a smart object here, and we take the smart object off, and now we can take the fill off a bit, because reflections are always like, they aren't that strong. So let's make the reflections like this, and now they look amazing, as you can see. So now we have all of our basic elements here without the lights. So the next thing we're going to do is cut those lights out and add them here also. So let's cut these out fast. So I'm going to cut out this one, and this one. Okay, so I'll speed this up. So with the pen tool we can just go around again and choose them. You don't have to choose this line, we can use brush for the string. Okay. Okay, so now we have selected these, and now I'm going to make a selection and then just Ctrl C, Ctrl V or Ctrl J, and then I move these here. Okay, so now we have our lights here, and I will make these lights to a separate folder, so I bring them up over the lantern layer, and then I make a folder and name it lights, and then I put this here, and okay, now we have our light folder, and then we just make an own layer for each lantern like this. Okay, and then we can delete this, because now we have lantern these lights separately. And let's look which is the okay, so they are like, this is in the right. Okay, they are in the right order already. So now what we are going to do, we're going to make this a little bit skinnier. So like this, we distort it, and that's great. Then we make each of these lights pretty small. So these are just little details that I like to add. to my images, because they give a certain feeling, in my opinion. And that's now the lights are here, and they are the same size. And now I just put them to their place. So here, here, and the third one here. Okay. So now we have our lights. Then we can make the whole lights a little bit smaller. And then we just make a new layer. Then we take brush, make the brush small, take the hardness to 100, and then we go close. And then here we take black and brush once here, and then once here, like this. Okay, let's take the flow to 100% and the opacity to 100% also. And then we press shift and then click here, and now you have a straight line here. Same to this one. Press here, then shift, hold shift and click here. And then the third one, press here and hold the shift here. Okay, so now we have our lights, now we have our lanterns, reflections, everything else but the lighting and the coloring. So the next video will be about the lighting, and then we do the colors at the last video. Okay, so let's see you in the next video. Okay, so welcome to the lighting video, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can create this wipe to the image. As you can see, this is very dramatic compared to this. So this is kind of blank. So we're going to create some lighting with exposures and curves and etc. Things like that. Okay, so before we do that, we just make let's put everything to their own like folders. It's important to keep everything in order here, because it's easier to like fix things when you know where the layers are. Because if everything is like messed up here, it's very hard to stay in track of things. So let's put this to group like this, and let's name it boat. And here, this is the boat reflection, so we put that here. And then let's move it below. Okay, so now we have our boat here, and then we have our gate, and let's put the reflection of the gate here. And we can move these below everything because they are not visible. These are just backups for everything. And then we put this in folder and name this gate. And then we can make one new folder for this background image and name it background. Okay, so now we have everything in order, and then we can start making the lights. So let's make a new folder and name it lighting. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do here, we're going to add curves. So just click curves here, or from the layer, new adjustment, layer, and then curves. Okay, and we are going to make this effect to the whole image, so we leave this layer mask untouched. And we're going to create a contrast curve here, and I will show you how to do that. So remember, the left bottom bar is blacks. As you can see, if I move it here, all of the shadows will be darker, and if I move the blacks up, all of the blacks will open and become brighter. And here highlights, if I bring this down, it will take highlights off, and if I put this here to the left, it will brighten up the highlights. Okay, and then here is the midtones, and when I put a point here and bring down, then it's like putting the effect on the whole image. Okay, so if you want to drag these points out, you just grab them and then move them outside of this so you can get them off. Okay, So what we're going to do here, we're going to bring up the blacks first. So let's grab this here and grab it up a bit. Okay. Then we go to the middle and we grab this and take it down a bit like this. And then we're going to grab the highlights here and increase the highlights a bit like this. And then this is a little bit too much, the blacks, so we take it down a bit. Okay, so 19 here, the output, if you want to follow the numbers. And then I'm going to make a slight adjustment here, so I will make an S looking thing. So that's great in my opinion. Okay, so the effect is a little bit too strong, so we take the fill out a bit. Okay, so something like 80 looks good. And now you can see the difference is pretty huge. And I do this because it blends everything together well. Like, as you can see, this is kind of blank, and when we click this on, it will like add this effect there that everything that just blends together better. Maybe we take the midtones up a bit and then this down just a hint. Okay, that's perfect. And the next thing we're going to do, we're going to make some depth of field to the image. So now there isn't any like vignetting going on, so we're going to make a little vignette here. So we take exposure here, exposure, or here layer, new adjustment layer, and then exposure. Okay, and now we're going to use this layer mask. So if we want black here, a little bit of depth of field here, then we just take the black color and we put the flow to 100% and opacity to 100%, and then we're just going to brush with black to the places where we don't want the effect to be on. So black removes and white rebuilds. So now I don't want any darkness to the sky, so I brush the sky off, and then I don't want any darkness to the middle of the image also, so I'm going to brush this too. And now, as you can see, this white part is the part where it's going to be visible. So now we take the exposure down a bit to -1.5, looks great. And then we're just going to refine this a bit like this. And now we have a little darkness at the bottom, as you can see. Then the next thing we're going to do, we're going to make some lightness to the middle of this image. So we take again the exposure, and now what we want to do, we want to fill the layer mask with black. So now if we do this, it won't show us anything, and we want some lighting over here in the middle. So we're going to take the brush, and now we're going to paint white to the middle of the image, and we want to take the flow down a bit so it won't be so strong. So let's take it down to 80, and then we're just going to paint once white here. Maybe click 2 times. Okay, as you can see, now we have here this white part and the blacks here, and now we just increase the exposure a bit. Okay, so like this to 0.55, and now we have this lightness here in the front of the image. And the next thing we're going to do, we're going to add a bit of lighting coming from the clouds. So we make a new layer, and now we're going to use these blending modes. So if I if I brush white here now, it will just make two like white brush parts here, and it doesn't look great. So what we're going to use, we're going to take here and put it to overlay, and as you can see now it blends in very well, but this is of course really strong, so we're going to take the fill out, maybe to 20%, and now we have this little bit of light coming from the clouds more, as you can see, and then I just can move it a bit to right, and now it's in its place. And the next thing we're going to do, we're going to brush some shadows in. So we need to put some shadows here, here, and then here on the boat. So let's create a new layer, and then press X for changing the color here, and then put the flow to 3 or 5. I think 4 is fine. And now we're going to zoom in, and what we're going to do here, we are going to brush black here, just brush black here. So we're going to make the beginning of the reflection a little bit darker, since that's how it's in real life also. So just brush some black here. It isn't really like that precise where you're going to put it, but just brush some of the black here, and then maybe one stroke there too. And then we're going to brush black, do the boat, and do the boat's reflection here with the same flow. And this just like makes the whole image look more realistic. Okay, so now we have our blacks here, here and there, and maybe we push some black to the top of the gate too. Maybe here and here. And now we're just going to take the fill out a bit to 75. Okay, and now we have our shadows done. And okay, so one last thing we're going to add here is fog, and I have downloaded custom brushes from a site called brushyeezy.com, and I will do a bonus video on how to download custom brushes, so you don't have to go to a different tutorial for that. So yeah, just make a new layer, then I go here and click this icon here, and then I choose the brushes that I have downloaded. Just watch the bonus video and you will learn how you can get these custom brushes here. And I'm using this one for the fog, and I take white and flow to 6%, and then I just click here with different sizes, and I will create some fog to the image. Maybe that was a little bit too much. Also to the far, these small fog things. And yeah, that's our fog. But the problem with these brushes are, if I put the flow to 100 and show you, it creates these strong outlines, so you have to erase them out. So just take the eraser and then erase the strong outlines off, like this, and then we can maybe move the whole fog a little bit down, and that's perfect in my opinion. And now we are done with our lighting, and as you can see the difference is huge, and in my pictures this lighting thing that I do makes the most like the dramatic feel to my images. Everything blends in well when you have done this, and for every image I have somewhat similar lighting like adjustments, so you can use all of these like the fog and exposure and curves with different images too if you want. So that's our lighting, and then in the next video we are going to do the coloring. And yeah, we are not going to do exact same colors as we have here, because I think this is a little bit too cyan. So we are going to make the colors a bit more like bluish. Okay, so now we have our image almost ready, and we'll see you in the next video with coloring. Okay, so welcome to the final video of this tutorial. And in this video we are going to do the final color grading adjustments. And we are also going to make the reflection for these lights, since I forgot them in the original one too. So now we need to remember to do them, okay? But yeah, let's start by taking the hue and saturation. This is what I correct my colors with. And as I said in the last video, I want to make it more like blue than cyan, as it is in this original one. So now we're going to do that. So first we're going to take the hue down to like 20, I mean the hue of the blues, of course, to -25 or -20, and then we're going to boost the blues to like +20, and then we're going to take the lightness down to -10. So that gave us more like a blue vibe to the image. And then we're going to take our reds, and I want to make this gate a bit like darker. So let's take the lightness of the gate down to -20, and then that's great. Okay, and then we're going to take our yellows, which are these lanterns, and then we're going to boost the lightness. So I want to take the yellowness out of the lanterns a bit, so that is easily done with the lightness. So this up to like 45, and then we take the saturation down to like 30. Okay, now our lanterns look great in my opinion, and that fast we could make like a dramatic change to the colors. And the next thing we're going to do, we're going to take color balance, and here we are in midtones, and we're going to take the cyans down to -10, and then we're going to boost the blues to 6 or 5, and then we're going to take the fill down to 70%, and now that's good for our blues. And then I always do last in my color grading is a final curve. We did the same curve here in lighting already, but I like to do a one curve in top of everything in the last folder. Actually, we put this in folder and name this color grading. And now we're just going to put a curves here, and we boost the blacks a bit. Then we take the midtones down a bit, and now we're going to boost the highlights a bit. But now we're not going to make the curve like this. We don't want this much contrast, so we just boost it a little bit like that. And that's our final curve. And then we just going to take the brightness and contrast and maybe put a bit of contrast, and then boost the brightness to like 9 also, and then take the fill down to 60%. Okay, so that's basically our color grading. One thing that I want to make more is to like take some of the saturation off from these lights. So that is easily done by going to our lights folder here. Then we have our lights here in one like folder, one layer, and then we're going to zoom here, and then we click Control and select it, and then we go to hue and saturation, and then we take the saturation down to like -30. That's a lot better in my opinion. maybe we can take the lightness down a bit so it looks better. Yeah, now the lights blend in well also, and then we need to do the reflection to these lights. So that is done by combining all of these layers, duplicating them. Okay, so this takes some time, I don't know why, but yeah. Then we convert to smart object. Then we take the smart object off, and now we just take Ctrl T, flip it vertically, and then we bring the lights here. Okay. And then what we can do, we can change the perspective a bit so it looks more realistic. Like that. And then we just call here, filter, distort, displace, and put like 15 and 15 as we did with the lanterns here in the front, and make sure stretch to fit and repeat edge pixels is on. And then we go here and take the displacement map that we did. Okay, that's now our reflection to the lamp lights, and now we take the fill down to like 46 or 50. So that's now our reflection to the lamps, and that's basically everything done. I'm just figuring out, should I take the fill out even more, or should I erase like flow to 10 and then erase some of the blacks here and maybe blend them in a bit more like that. Okay, that's better. And of course the one lamp isn't visible because it's behind that, but yeah. Now we have everything ready for this image. And yeah, I actually like this one that we did in this tutorial more than the original one. I think this is like, it just looks better in my eyes. Okay, so now I want to do a little recap on everything that we did, just as a reminder. So we started with this, then we added the gate here, and we changed the perspective of the gate, and then we blend. I showed you how you can blend two images together well. And then I showed you how to do a water reflection. That was done with displacement maps, and you can use the same displacement map now in every image that you have a reflection in, because it works in most of images. And then we added the boat and its reflection, and as you can remember, this was kind of tricky because the perspective was so off. And then I showed you how the burn and dodge tool works. So we changed the lighting to opposite side here, and then we added the lanterns, and I sped up a lot of the process, like putting this to its place, because that's really up to you, like mind how you can how you want to position the lanterns. So that was just like copy pasting and then moving and flipping everything around and just playing with the composition. Then we added the reflections, and that was also done separately, so you have to do every layer separately and then add the same displacement map with the different values. So in the front we had 15 for horizontal and vertical, then 10 for the middle ones, and then 5 for the back ones. And that's like the most work you need to do, and that's the most boring thing you could do, so that's also why I sped up a lot of the process. Then we had all lights. This just gives some feel to the image in my opinion. And then we did the most difference with this lighting thing. As you can see, we added some fog and depth of field to the image, and then the final color grading that we just did, and this just gives the final vibe to the image. Okay, so here's our before and here's our after image. I'm really thankful that I got this opportunity to make this tutorial for you all, and thanks for the crazy amount of support that I receive on a daily basis on Instagram. And you can find me on Instagram at WhistlesOfJulius, and you can always ask some questions from me there, or then you can send your questions to my email. And I hope you enjoyed watching this, and I hope that you learned a lot of new things about Photoshop. And yeah, that's everything from me. Thank you for watching. So welcome to this bonus video, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can download custom brushes. So the site is called brushyeezy.com, and here you have like tons of free brush like sets. So you just write here what brush you want. We want the fog brushes, so we go to fog. Okay, so now we have 76 brush sets here, and I'm using this one, the first one here. So click to this, and then you click the free download, and now it will automatically start to download it in a couple seconds. Okay, so this will take some time. I have a pretty slow internet connection, so we have to wait a bit. But yeah, this is a really good site. I download all of my brushes here, and you can really like step up your Photoshop game with custom brushes, because you can add cool effects and like almost everything that you want. I really need to like get a better internet connection, because this is annoying to wait like for a small file to download so long. At least when I'm making this tutorial video, this is pretty annoying, cause yeah. Okay, so now we have our file downloaded, and you need to have some type of program that you can extract the files with. So I'm using WinRAR, and this will now automatically open WinRAR here from me. So you have this one thing that all of the brushes are in. So you just extract this to anywhere you want. I'm going to extract this to my tutorial folder, and then I have done this already once, so I will just copy paste it like this. Okay, so then you go to your like PC. You need to find your PC. I don't know how this works for Mac, but in Windows you go to the PC, and then you search for your local disk, and then you double click here and you search program files, and here you should have your Adobe folder, and here you have all of your Adobe like programs. So then you go to your Photoshop folder, and then you find this presets thing here, and here you have brushes. Okay, so here are now all of the basic brushes, and then you just find the folder where you extracted the thing, and then you bring it here, and I have already made it because yeah. So now we have this here. Then you just restart Photoshop, and then you should have the brushes here when you go here to this icon in brush, and then it should be here. So when I click here and okay, then I have them here. So that's how you can download custom brushes to Photoshop. And yeah, thanks for watching this bonus video.